Live again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Tooele Happy Hour podcast, starring Jared Anderson and David Weiss. If Head Trauma had a podcast, this is what it would sound like. Humana, humana. Hey, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone who identifies as whatever else, we have a special show for you, probably going on for the next 2 weeks. Chris Stewart is stepping down from Congressional District 2. We're losing our one of our finest congressmen, and he's got to take care of his wife. He's doing the right thing. You got to always put family first. He's definitely a man I admire, and we're going to have a lot of people reaching out for some airtime before the state delegates vote. They want to put their platform before you so you can cast judgment and measure their opinions against yours. So we've got a couple candidates lined up for this week. We have Scott Hatfield tonight. He's running for Congressional District 2, Utah, the special election. Scott, will you introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Scott Hatfield. As Jared said, I'm running for District 2 to replace Congressman Stewart. So a little bit about me. Currently, I'm a student at Utah Valley University. So I'm studying public policy and public administration there. I have worked for corrections. I've worked for both Senator Lee and Senator Romney. I have worked for the Department of Veterans Affairs, and I am a veteran of the United States Navy. So that's a little bit about me, just to kick things off.
All right. So, have you been thinking about joining in politics for a while, or just?
So when I got home from my deployment in 2014, I started to notice that the country wasn't what it was. Identity politics were starting to take roots, and they started to kind of push their way through the country. And that wasn't the country that I fought for, and I know my brothers and sisters in arms didn't fight for, and it wasn't the country that I grew up in. And around then is when I decided that, hey, once I'm out of the military, I'm going to do this thing, and I never did it up until now because I wanted to get myself to a position educationally and at a point to where I'm at now, where I feel comfortable. I have a family backing, friend backing, and I hope to, have the people endorsement.
All right, good. Good. What are some of the things you're looking to? Just give us some of your points. What would you want to enact? What would be your missions and goals if you go back to Washington?
For me, one thing that I want everyone to know is that I'm not a politician whatsoever. I've done everything the hard way. I grew up in a single family home, or a single mother home, I should say. We lived under the poverty line in rural California. We barely made ends meet even then. So I joined the military to better my life. And that's why the forefront of my platform is veterans, military, law enforcement, and first responders. As far as veterans go, it's pretty obvious that, we lose many veterans a day to suicide. They can't access their mental health care or even health care appropriately. Luckily here in Utah, we have a pretty good system. I've worked with them in constituent services, but I believe that veterans, not only in Utah but across the nation, deserve better access and emergent access. If they're in a crisis, and it should be immediate. They shouldn't have to wait, because personally, I've lost too many of my friends that I deployed with, and it really strikes at me, because you don't want to lose those best friends that you served with. I also kind of want to take a dive into property tax abatement for veterans, mainly because many states do have abatement, but it's not a federal thing. And state level, it's very difficult to get property tax abatement depending on your disability status. Like for instance, Utah, you have to apply every year, and if you miss the deadline, you're in a sense SOL, and it's unfortunate, but I think it's something that we owe to veterans. The access to healthcare, mental health, and tax abatement for their properties, because they've given us some of the ultimate sacrifices. As far as military, let's see.
Hey, Scott, what was your MOS?
So I was a Navy corpsman. I was an 8404. I personally served with 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines, 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines. Then I was attached to 23rd Dental Company and Naval Hospital 29 Palms. So my entire time was in Southern California, in the wonderful town and base of 29 Palms.
It's a beautiful place. It really is.
It is.
So you were a Marine that, didn't need as many crayons.
In a sense, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, for military members, this is actually something that I faced whenever I got out. And it really kind of threw me it kind of threw me to the side, and it made it difficult to make that transition from military life to civilian life and veteran life. Currently, the Navy, the only thing that they offer, for instance, for Navy corpsmen is EMT certification. EMTs don't make that much money. As many people know, you can't really sustain a family, a house, feed yourself on that salary without having a 2-person household or working multiple jobs in different departments. I kind of want to introduce, and I know it's been introduced and it keeps on getting shut down, a skills bridge program. I know the military does have a skill bridge program, but it's not all encompassing. It only does certain MOSs. And I believe that if we have a skill bridge program that is all encompassing and actually allows veteran or military members, when they transition to becoming civilian and veteran, this skill bridge program, that they will be able to transition more easily with their families. They won't
Absolutely.
be as financially independent. They'll be more financially independent, and they'll be able to, help their family, be a better member of the community, and not have those other stressors that, are out of their control. And they can focus more on their family, work, and then getting the healthcare that they need.
And it's just the morally right thing to do. As a medic, I'm sure I myself was a medic in the Air Force. I was a flight medic, and they trained us to intubate, and they trained us to put IVs in, and everything from sticking your lungs with a needle to remove air. All the things you wouldn't be able to do as a bedpan commando on the outside in a hospital. Now they only give you the they only give you the EMT. What is it? I or basic? You get a basic EMT out of the schooling that they give you when you want to apply that to the civilian world. And
Exactly.
here I am. I'm trained to do all this wonderful stuff. I should have the right to at least attempt the RN board and sit for the test and the skills lab and get my RN at the minimum. And they don't let you do that. They want you to go through their education system in the civilian side, because that's the money. It's a money game. And I think it's negligible of the government to ignore the fact that they trained us at one level and then dump us on the civilian side without the permissions and parameters to apply those skills.
Exactly.
Do you,
Um,
do you think the barriers to that is the education, the schools, or do you
oh,
think that
definitely. I
do
should
you
say
think they've
definitely
like
not.
lobbied to keep that from being a possibility?
Um, I, I I think it's more the educational system. And the Department of Education that is having a big play in it because they want that paycheck that comes every month from the Veterans Affairs that we utilize, and we our GI bills that go out to the schools every month. They want that money, like they were like you boys were saying. Um, and it's unfortunate because GI bills are transferable to your spouse or your children if you don't use it. And at this, what they're doing, by them not allowing you to at least challenge the RN board, apply to medical school, and accept your time in rate and your time in service, um, as an associate's or a bachelor's, in those fields. um, you're basically going to take up their entire GI Bill, and then your children or your spouse can't use that GI Bill that you can transfer.
Mm.
So
Well,
I think it's all a money game, and everyone wants it.
it's not just that, but the GI Bill wouldn't cover going to become a registered nurse. It wouldn't do a full coverage on that 4 years.
Oh, yes, it would.
Would it
Yeah,
really?
it
Yes.
would. It would. However, if they want to become like oh
A doctor.
like a doctor or a PA or I can't remember it off the top of my head right now, but it's a nurse practitioner, an
Mhm.
NP. They wouldn't be able to do that. Their doctorates wouldn't be covered. However, if if the government and schools actually work together, they would be able to, if we could at least get it to the bachelor's level, that's something, that's a win, and then they could apply for their masters and doctors and doctorates and be able to pay for that and still possibly have something to pass on. And then they could be, they'll be able to work in the community and apply those things. But as far as like the whole medical side of things, that as well as like law enforcement, I mean, they're well trained. They have to be on point. You have there's so many MOSs in the military that are transferable, but really it doesn't transfer, and a lot of people won't even hire veterans, which is unfortunately. And luckily we are in a state that actually does prioritize veterans, and I'm thankful for that. So
Um, I wonder if some of the non-transferability, like law enforcement, things like that, could that be the state standards they have to go through? Because like Post is a state school,
yes.
and I guess you'd have to push it through each individual state. But whereas you'd be for Utah, what are Utah's standards on that?
I'm not familiar with the post standards as far as that. The only thing that I'm familiar with is corrections.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really looked into the law enforcement side. Where I think it really kind of hangs up is the fact that they don't know like judicial code. They're used to like military code of justice, the UCMJ, and what JAG officers are going to be doing. So they know that one like the back of their hand because they're the police on base, and that's their jurisdiction. So I think it's more of like the educational background as far as learning each state's codes and what they can and cannot do, and what a ticket would be, or what basically writing that down and how they should conduct themselves. And at a minimum, at least, they could be offering like in the skill bridge program for something like that. They should, if they're retiring or separating and they are getting out of service and they're saying, I'm going to move to Utah, they could work with like the local entity, whether it's West Jordan Police Department, St. George Police Department, and they could say, hey, I'm getting out, I was an MP, And I'm gonna apply to your department. I see you have a position, and they would say, okay, well, let's teach you our judicial system and like how our codes work and what you can and can't do and how to navigate that. And then they'll be able to, I mean, what you do as an MP, sure, there are some things that are different, but it's basically the same thing. You're,
Mm-hmm.
you're, you know, you're doing perimeter checks, you're checking things, you're enforcing the law, unfortunately there are domestic issues that happen on bases. They're dealing with that. They're trying to keep drugs out of the base. So they're doing those things. They
They're
are dogs.
enforcing DUIs. The traffic thing is one of the big
Yeah.
transferable things. I think as of right now, how it's done, if you're getting out of the military and you're an MP and you can, while you're, what do they call it? The transition classes at the end of your term of service, if they do reach out, generally, if a police department does pick them up, they'll sponsor them into post.
Yes.
There's that one of the ways you get into post is sponsorship, or or you can self-sponsor yourself. That was repeating myself a lot in that self. But anyways, and they'll sponsor you that way, that police department or sheriff's department, that administration
Yes.
will sponsor you to post.
I think fire department's very transferable. When you do the different fire department schools through the military, those
Yes.
those just float right into the civilian sector.
There's so few paid fire departments, though.
True. True.
That is one of the rarest jobs in the United States. Most fire departments, in anywhere smaller than 50, 60,000 people, it's a volunteer status most of the time.
So I got a lot of
Yes.
questions from some of the state delegates that I communicate with in the Facebook groups, and some of them stand out more than others. And I like this one right here. I want to ask you, what would you do differently from Chris Stewart if you're elected?
Well, one thing that actually really stood out to me is I actually have a friend who's stationed at Dugway, and I was invited out to the base, and according to some sources there, the DoD, the Department of the Army, and a lot of the state entities and federal entities are ignoring them, plain and simple.
Mm.
They tried to decimate the base to turn it into an industrial complex, and they tore down houses. They crippled the local economy. They
You mean they took away the subway? That was their local economy.
Yeah, and they're basically just painting buildings, and many of the buildings are left empty. There is 25 service members there, and they have to travel either to Eagle Mountain or Tooele, well over an hour and a half, basically 3 hours round trip to even get a haircut. They don't have proper needs out there, and I don't know why the base was just left to rot. It's a very integral base and post for the Army and for the United States. I mean, it's a biochemical facility. You think you would have military members out there and a full functioning facility, but it was really disheartening just to see how the civilians and the military that are stationed there have to live. And I was really surprised that if I'm not mistaken, I believe Congressman Stewart is a veteran as well, and I'm surprised that with it being in his district, he hasn't done more for it. And if something has been done by him, they're not aware of it.
Doug was in a hard position.
It is.
Where we're dialing back the war on terror.
Yes.
Dugway was the major testing ground for anything to do with that. One, the place looks like Afghanistan and smells like Afghanistan.
Tastes like it too.
Yeah. And it's bitter in the back of your throat. But, I mean, that's where That's where our tier one units went to train for Afghanistan. That's where the drones were tested. Part of their testing was done out there. You know, but Dugway had a colonel that was very proactive on making Dugway a place where the rest of the military wanted to come and test and train. And then 9/11 happened, and Dugway became a more focused training ground instead of what that colonel had made it into a general training ground. And I'm wondering if that didn't hurt it. And I think if I was to make a notion, congressmen don't set standards on training. Usually it takes a good colonel running that base to sell himself.
Oh, exactly. And I have not met with him. I just met with members of the community there. So I make it to be, a people person, and that's another thing that's going to make me different from the congressman. Again, like you said, he's a great guy. I've met with him, and I've talked to him. He's, like I said, he's a great guy. But one thing that is lacking, I think it's lacking just in Washington D.C. and in Utah politics, is the fact that humanism and meeting with the people, and not just taking the riches and the lobbyists and the corporations' money. Like, I'm a self-funded campaign. I'm doing this all out of pocket. I'm not asking for donations unless the people want to do it. I want to meet with the people. I want their endorsement. I don't want the others. If they so happen to do it, I will gladly welcome it, but I won't be bought. That's just plain and simple.
All right. So on the Dugway topic, though, let me just say this. That AFES contract prevents a lot of like food trucks and things like that from being really profitable going out there. They take a big percentage.
Is it AFES or is it the getting past the security to go out there all the time?
It's the AFES. The AFES puts a lot of pressure. They force a huge, like really, there's like a double layer of services put on top of food industry there. So you'll have health inspectors, people like me or something like that will go out there. Plus, then you also have the regular county and state health inspection systems. And it's a pain in the butt to service the servicemen because of all of these regulations.
It is. But what's sad is that the civilians that live there don't have access to health care. They don't. If something were to happen, God forbid, they have to be life flighted out. Eagle Mountain, Wendover, or Tooele is going to have to respond to that.
The clinic doesn't offer any kind of services.
It's an occupational health clinic, but the fire department will act as the paramedics.
They'll act as EMTs.
Yes, they have that. However, it's like their hospital is sitting empty. Their clinic can only touch service member.
Really? Their clinic? I worked out there years ago, and their clinic used to treat. My wife at the time had Crohn's disease, and I know the doctor out there would write and fill her prescriptions, which was a sweet deal because of the status, but it could have changed. I mean, that was, 2001. Yeah.
It's just from insiders there. Basically, it's because they tore down houses, and because it's an hour and a half either way and 3 hours round trip for anything, they can attract people to work there, especially for what the government pays. Like, I've been on a GS salary. It sounds like you have been too. It's not good. Like, especially when you're traveling 3 hours round trip, and
that's a good point. And here's a question for me. Nationally, we are looking at we're in a big suffering point for salaries,
Yeah.
or just for wage nationally. The wages haven't grown anywhere across the
Yeah.
spectrum, at least on the labor class and things like that. The executive class has done rather well for themselves, but I don't know what the answer to this is. But what steps do you think the government could have to mitigate that?
I I think the government is overspending in places that it shouldn't be.
But
Um,
how would that reflect onto that? I
because
mean,
if they didn't spend money on unnecessary programs, and they consolidated certain governmental organizations and put that budget, combined budgets, and then they could take money that is left over in surplus and funnel it into salaries, and to give us the people better salaries. It's just like that. I mean,
well, I'm
um,
looking more broadly at our whole society.
and so as far as broadly goes, I mean, minimum wage is meant for high school students up
Hmm.
until you graduate college. It's meant to get you through maybe your first 2 years of college, and then you should be applying for professional positions. Do I think the federal minimum wage is too low? Yes. Where does it need to be? I don't know, but I know it's not $10 to $15 an hour. I mean, $10 maybe at a
Hmm.
minimum, but that's going to cause even more inflation. We're seeing that across the board by just businesses taking that step already, because you pay more to an employee, um, prices go up.
Hmm.
Um, it,
I
it's
don't,
just
I'm
it's
not a
just
fan of minimum wages. I don't think that'd be a way to solve this issue at all.
Oh no, I think wages should be based off of your performance.
Well, I also think states are different.
Oh yes, that
Different
they
states can bear uh,
10th Amendment right.
different
10th
everything.
Amendment.
Yeah. I
I'm a
am a
10th
fan
Amendment
of
Democrat.
flat taxes. I
Yes.
think that our tax system right now is absurd. I guess it'd be the way to state it.
Yeah.
You know, I just think it is. I think giving people past a certain point of income more ability to hide more income, to where not only that, but it forces people that are right on that threshold to want to jump to the next income just so they can hide it.
Yeah.
I think that is absurd, which it seems like, I don't know. I'm not a tax professional, but it seems like, I guess if I was to say, if I wanted to put anyone out of a job, it'd be H&R Block. And not because I dislike H&R Block, but because I think it's absurd that we have this overly complex minefield that's our tax system. And
Yes.
it feels like it's meant as a punishment device, or
Oh,
just a grovel
taxes.
before me device.
Taxes are just a punishment to the people. I mean, taxation, in my opinion, is theft. Um, we should have the freedom to, not have. I mean, I know certain taxes are needed. There are certain things that we need to fund. However, we are overtaxing the people, and
Hmm.
it's unfair. And, I mean, that's why, like, some of the things that I want to do, are property tax abatement for veterans. I want to give tax breaks to small businesses. I want to work with, like, tax breaks for law enforcement, first responders, because they're out there every day putting their life on the line for us and keeping us safe, and or they have kept us safe, and they have done their duty to us. So, it's the least we could do to help that. And I mean, that's kind of where I want to start, is focusing on them, and then seeing how the ripple effect will, kind of happen. I mean, law enforcement and veterans are something like 3 to 6% of the population, somewhere in there. So, it starts small and then work up. from there. That way we don't completely cripple, our already wavering economy.
Oh,
That's,
yeah. Well, I want to say this: if we're going to run deficits, why have taxes?
exactly.
Just seriously, I mean, the taxes mean nothing compared to what the government's going to spend. Why tax us at all?
Exactly. Yeah.
We just call it what it is. The government has one product, and that's T-bills to the feds, and that's what they sell. And the feds buy those T-bills and turn them into cash or numbers on a computer screen and sell that to us.
Well, to piggyback off of that conversation, where do you see the deficit in the next couple of years, and what do you think can be done to alleviate it?
Yeah, how many commas do you think we can add on there in the next
Um,
6
I,
years?
I think it's going to stay at the current commas, but I think you'll see if Biden is reelected
Mm-hmm.
or another Democrat is reelected, you'll see it jump probably 10, 15 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know who the Republican nominee will be, um, but I mean it'll go up, but I don't think it'll be as expansive as that. Uh, we really just need to focus on bringing jobs back. I mean, China, Russia, and there's BRICS is going on, and most of those countries that BRICS is a formed of have our production. They have the industry, and I think as I don't want to say a punishment, but for a punishment for them doing what they're doing, yank it, bring it back to us. Um, we have people who want to work, and it's just that plain and simple. Like um, China and Russia and India, they shouldn't have the manufacturing and stuff like that. Bring it back here.
On the China topic, I mean, Taiwan is definitely a headline item in the near
Yes, it
future.
is.
So let's say the vote is in for Congress, and you have to decide. All right, well, China attacked Taiwan. What do we do? Do we do anything at all, or preemptively nuke them? What would your opinion be?
No, I would not preemptively nuke. That is a um, last resort. I don't think that I don't think how we've handled Ukraine as far as just pumping money into them, right? That's on us. We're gonna have to pay. We're gonna have to pay that. I'm gonna have to pay that. You guys are gonna have to pay for that. Um, I don't think we should be pumping money into Taiwan either. I think if they hit Taiwan, what's next? It's the Philippines. It's going to be Korea. It's going to be Japan, and China and Russia have they have conquest mindsets. Um, uh, and I think that we, at a minimum, should if China decides to cross the Yellow Sea and go towards Taiwan, we should preemptively start bombing as they come across. It's as simple as that. And if they try to take them on, we need to protect them because they supply so many things to us, and they supply many things to the entire world. And if they do, like I said, if they go for Taiwan, what's going to stop them from South Korea? What's going to stop them from the Philippines? What's going to stop them from Japan?
Yeah,
They want all that stuff.
that's a tough one. We talked to Stuart when the Ukraine war kicked off, and he said that he proposed a group of congressmen and senators proposed prior to all of that kicking off, stationing forces in the Ukraine, which might have stopped them, but it would have given us previous air superiority, particularly with an air force there,
Yes.
and And if it didn't stop Russia, it would have given us ground to stand on. Where now we're pinned in that if we move air forces in, it'll be seen as a aggressive maneuver around the world. And I'm wondering, we do have forces in Japan. We have forces in South Korea, of course.
There's Diego Garcia as well, right out there in the ocean, and Darwin in Australia.
And I don't know if Taiwan would be open to us being there. And again, that's a lot of contested water there. That could we sail a Navy through or station a Navy there? I just wonder what opportunity there'd be for that. And again, I'm as far away from Washington as you can get, and I'm a moron, so I wouldn't follow me down any of these pathways. But that's something to think about. I don't know what. I don't know where I was going with that.
Exactly. I think it's a wait and see in who is going to pull the trigger first.
Do you think China's actually going to invade Taiwan? I don't know.
I actually watched I was actually watching and listening to a podcast by Nick Freitas out of Virginia, and he said it would be very difficult for China to actually do it because of the geography, our military bases, and the fact that their naval base that they would have to launch out of, you would see it coming days ahead.
Yeah,
the military moving to it, the Navy moving into it, them loading it, and then moving. So it would be stupid of the Chinese government to do this, because we would see it coming a million, way before they would, and it won't take us long to get troops from Japan and Korea in Taiwan.
Well, and I also wonder, this is a catch-22. This is a wondering on both ways. If China hasn't watched what happened in Ukraine and thought, okay, this hasn't been an easy take. But then again, if they haven't watched what happened in Ukraine and said, okay, they can't resupply by land like they have in the Ukraine. So I don't know. It could go both ways. I know China's in a precarious situation, which might make China act irrationally. Xi Jinping has been the king of rationality so far. So I don't know. That is a tough call. That is a very tough one. And it would be hard.
Yeah, and I'm very wary about deploying troops. If need be, I know I would trust, my brothers and sisters in arms to do it. I mean, even with the state of our military, I know they could do it. We have that fighting spirit, but I would be very, very cautious, because I've seen firsthand what the cost is, and it makes me it would be a very hard decision, and I would be leaning to higher power to make the right decision.
Well, on that note, let's go to Congress has given up its position on declaring war. What do you think could be done if you became a congressman to wrestle that away from the president and make it so it's again in Congress's purview?
I mean, if I'm not mistaken, it's written in the Constitution that Congress has the power. Like, they don't have the right to do that. It's the people's vote. The people should have the right to take that power away from them. That's that was wrong of them to do that. I'm very much a constitutionalist. Like, you don't. There was no amendment made, not to my knowledge, and if they did do it, they did it behind closed doors and did not tell us.
Well, it's the War Powers Act. It was first, I think, it was initiated under Nixon and then enhanced under Reagan.
I can understand the president having the right to 90 days, and then they needed the declaration of war. There's a check and balance. That, I think, is how the system should be. But in the end, Congress has the power to declare, because it's the people. We represent the people. Congress represents the people. They, like,
But
and then they,
the Congress hasn't exercised that. Do you think there's a possibility to get that back into the House of Congress?
if I'm elected, yeah, I will fight tirelessly to bring that back, because that is not the power of the president. It's the power of Congress and the people.
Yeah, we've seemed to have hidden under over the last since World War II, we've hidden behind words, police action for United Nations when it came to Korea. And then it was police action in Vietnam, a police action in Panama, Honduras, Grenada, another police action during Desert Storm 1, the war on terror, yet it really wasn't a declared war on Afghanistan, Iraq,
Yeah, they only
Syria,
lasted a couple days.
Libya, Pakistan,
Yemen, yeah.
yeah, where do I go with it? Yeah, Yemen is a war declared by Saudi Arabia on the Yemenis Shia Muslims.
Yes.
Yet we seem to be paying for it. We provide the fuel, the weapons, the air platforms, the fueling air platform. So, and where does this keep going on and on and on? And I don't know, it just feels like we've got a government that's kind of run amok and just doing what they want. And our voice in that government has, they take their time to get on the news every once in a while, but
They do.
they haven't really fought for us. And I don't know, it's kind of just gone wild.
Another thing that I think was ridiculous that they did by constitutional amendment was to cap the representatives at a certain number, and that's why we're stuck at 538. Obviously,
They never ratified the amendment that said it was, what was it, 31 representative for every, was it 33 or 66,000 people? Is that what it was?
exactly. And if you go back in time, like pre World War One, and even after near and around World War Two, when they capped it, it was one representative for anywhere from 1 to 100,000, and now it's millions.
Yeah.
In some districts, like here, luckily here in Utah, we're a little bit smaller, but you get to places like California, Texas, Florida, there's too many, and those states shouldn't have the power to wage war with their policies in Congress on the rest of the nation. And it's one thing that I would want to look into to see how we could overturn to have an expanding representative base, because
would you have to have a states' rights or a convention of states to re-enter that and get it certified where it is an amendment? What amendment is it? The 13th? Is that what it is?
No.
It's an amendment that never got ratified, which is why we haven't followed it. It was put in. It was put in the beginning, it's right close to the beginning. And they're like, oh yeah, that looks good, but they never ratified it. They never made it law. From what I understand, I haven't looked into it that deeply.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've looked at it too, but it's something that's kind of irritated me that they did that, because, as the population gets bigger, they just draw lines and they crack and they gerrymander it to their liking.
It would make gerrymandering go away because you wouldn't need it. Just
Exactly.
because there'd be someone ran the numbers and there'd be something like 3,000 congressmen.
I mean, just look at, our system, historically, was based off of the English Parliament. English Parliament is ever expanding. As their population increases, they add more people. that's how our system was supposed to be.
What would that look like if you got that ratified
It would
and we
mean
had to go from 400 and what is it, 450 representatives right now? Is that what it is?
it'd be we're at 538, so
538. And we had to go to
438.
like
So
3,000.
yeah, it would be chaos.
You
That
need a
would
bigger
be,
building.
that'd be well, one, it'd, man,
It would be
imagine that
difficult.
election year.
It would be intense.
It'd take you 6-7 hours to vote.
I believe, if that were to happen, I think it would have to be introduced short, slowly,
Like half
um,
at a time, or
a quarter at a time,
yeah.
just to ensure it would be that way. And I think you would have to start with the smaller states and then move to the bigger states because
It'd be impressive. Well, I would almost say you would want to just double Congress the first year. Just
yeah,
go ahead and double it. But imagine if a person represented just that many people, that would actually give the people a voice in government.
it would. And you would see, one thing that I also think is bad is the two-party system. It favors both parties.
Hmm.
Um, this would give people a voice. You would see actually the way the government is supposed to work and having coalitions between different parties, and they would have to work together for the people in order to pass legislation. Legislation isn't supposed to move fast, and it's not supposed to have a two-party system. George Washington warned us about it.
But
You know,
the first past the finish line almost guaranteed we'd have a two-party system, as it was in the very beginning. They tried not making one, and bam, Federalists and Anti-Federalists naturally
immediately.
pop up. So that's
Yeah,
the first where two parties are essentially all that can truly exist in a first past the finish line system. Where if you get coalition building, which we don't have that with the first past the finish line, that's where you see multiple parties pop up, because you'll see people float in and out of parties more, especially voters.
exactly.
So I don't know if I necessarily want to do away with that, but I don't know. Maybe we could go back to a time when congressmen caned each other, because they didn't like what each other said. I don't.
So
That was a joke.
Yes, I understand. Yeah.
what about a really sensitive topic here? How about Social Security? How do you feel about Social Security there, Scott? Any changes
Um,
you'd make or
so I know my my family. I have a lot of family members who are on it, and they keep on cutting it back to them because they want to. They want to, they want illegal immigrants on it in certain places like California. I'm
Mhm.
seeing that happen. Um, they're digging into it. They're using the funds for other things that they shouldn't be doing. It, it's it's definitely a uphill battle with it, and it's one that I'll be completely honest, I haven't completely looked into. Um, all I know is that it's in disarray, and it's something that if I was elected, that Congress would really need to look at to ensure it's, I'm sure you guys have paid into Social Security. I paid into Social Security, and by the time we're retired, there may not even be it. It may not even be there in the next 10, 15, 20 years. So it's something that we need to protect because what are people going to do with their retirements and all of these things.
do you think that someone like myself, who probably doesn't have a lot of faith in the system, should have the right to opt out?
I personally would like to opt out because, so I would say yes. If someone doesn't want to pay into it, they shouldn't have to, because then again, we're entitled to our freedoms. We're entitled to freedom, prosperity, pursuit of happiness. Um, and if that's something you don't want to do, like, don't do it. But at the same time, it's a government organization. and they're they have their purpose. And if you were to do that, if someone were to opt out, it could cripple it.
What about
So
moving it along the 10th Amendment lines, making it so that Social Security was the purview of the state?
I think that's a fantastic idea.
And that way, if one state failed to meet their needs,
It wouldn't be on the rest of the nation.
it wouldn't stand
paycheck.
to destroy a whole nation. I mean, France is going through it right now. Okay,
Yeah.
but never mind. France has been in protest for 7 years now. This is the current iteration of France's protest. But France has protesting down to a science.
They do.
But yeah, I like the 10th Amendment for everything, because I believe that it'd be a lot gentler if one state failed versus a whole nation,
Exactly.
And also you get a petri dish, you have a state that may be uber successful, and other states that want to be successful can copy and paste.
Yes.
But
So, what do you think about what's going on with the Department of Justice handling classified information for the Biden campaign, the Biden camp versus the Trump camp? I suppose there's a difference in how they're approaching that. But what's your opinion on that?
I think the Department of Justice needs to have one standard of justice. Well, we'll start there. They're throwing out the rule of law and holding on to things for one administration, but prosecuting another for the same thing is feculent at best. At weaponizing the justice system to take on political opponents because you're afraid you're going to lose is not correct. It's we're in a time where we fought. We're basically in a time where we fought the British over. They were prosecuting us for things because we were political opponents. So they were taking us away to admiral courts, and that's basically what they're reinstating. But they're creating a two system of justice, and they're prosecuting conservatives and Republicans and anyone who disagrees with the radical left and the socialist communist side of the Democrat Party. They are hijacking all of our institutions to include the justice system, and if the justice system fails, which it is, we're all in a world of hurt.
mm-hmm.
And if they can do it to him, they'll do it to you, they'll do it to me, and they'll keep on going.
Well, just for the Justice Department, I personally love Joe Biden, and just Dave doesn't, though.
Black Lives Matter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the crazy thing. 2019, it was an explosive year. How do I put this? Militant wing of the Democrat Party burned cities to the ground, murdered, 34 people. Not a peep. No one cared.
Exactly.
Okay. And then, and look, I know January 6th was worse than 9/11, and the Challenger space shuttle explosion, and Hiroshima and Nagasaki all rolled into one. I mean, it was the worst thing ever, and we're supposed to all get weak in the knees about it, and how dare they sit at Pelosi's desk. But it kind of seems like the government put their well-being in front of Detroit's and and everyone else's. All these cities that burned to the ground in the fiery yet mostly peaceful protests.
Yep.
And it just seems like it's.
So I actually have an interesting take on that. A lot of people don't like the Patriot Act, but the Patriot Act does outline something very, very key into what I feel about that. um, is that if you're using protests for political gain and to spread domestic terrorism, you are a domestic terrorist. If you're burning down cities, looting businesses, killing people, burning people's livelihoods down, that's domestic terrorism just to get a vote the way you want.
Yeah,
So,
but I don't even think we have to label it as domestic terrorism. We just need to, the person who lit a building on fire or lit a dumpster on fire and pushed it into a building committed a crime.
they did.
We don't need the Patriot Act, which I think dilutes our freedoms and makes it,
It does.
and blurs the lines between civility and, between the Patriot Act is how they separate the people from the first 10 amendments.
Yes,
They committed a crime.
they did. And,
And
the justice system is weak. I mean, you can't just let people out early because they're on good behavior. They committed a crime. The what Utah has is kind of can't think of the term, but you can get like 15 to 20 years, 5 to 10 years. It's kind of a range date. That's
Scale.
wrong. Like, that's like, why do that? Like, if they committed arson, they murdered somebody, they did these things, they should have to serve the full sentence. There should be like, oh no, hey, you got a job if you clean those halls real good. No, you incited all these different crimes. You need to sit there. It's
Well, yeah, it's. I mean, I've got my opinions where these issues start.
Yes.
It's all colleges.
Jared, they are being very harsh on some of these individuals if they were in the January 6th
That's what I'm saying.
riot.
for sure, yeah.
That's what I'm saying, because they weren't tools of the, Marxist revolution.
I mean, it's pretty impressive. They had like all their cell phone information before they even landed back home from their vacation to DC. They were so on the ball with January 6th revolution, I guess is what they're calling it, that even me, I'm kind of startled, and I don't get startled easy by that stuff. So
Yeah, and it's if one side can, loot and burn down and murder people, but the other, call it what you will with January 6th, they do what they do.
I think
And
it's
not going to prosecute one side, but they're going to use the full extent of the law on the other. Again, double-edged sword. The justice system is corrupt, and it needs to be overhauled.
I think our issue comes from the states. Just spitballing here. January 6th was committed on federal land. Now,
Yes.
which automatically moved it into federal court. Federal courts had a narrative. They didn't like the current old man, so they went hard on it. But a lot of people ask, why didn't Trump send, federal forces into Portland, Oregon, and things like that? And I appreciate that he didn't, because I am a big 10th Amendment guy. And I don't think Oregon's going to cure itself anytime soon.
Nope.
I don't think California is, but I think we need to figure out how to give more strength to the voters, like the Greater Idaho movement.
Exactly. Yeah.
Granted, that's not in our purview, but the feds can write a law that makes it so that if a certain population in a certain state want to break away, you're from Northern California, you're probably familiar with what is it, the state of Jefferson?
Yes.
If a certain number, you drive through Northern California, I think that might have a pretty good chance of passing. The only reason it doesn't is because San Diego, San Francisco, and LA get to vote on it.
Well, there's also a law that states that no new state can be formed from an already existing state.
That needs to be done away with.
I totally agree. I totally agree with you.
I think California should be broken up just because it holds kind of a ridiculous seat as a poster child for large states, and it's utterly failing.
Exactly. I mean, the entire eastern part of the state and the northern part of the state. I'm from Kern County, so That's where I grew up, and it is completely different from the rest of the state.
Yeah,
And
I
they're not represented whatsoever. So why shouldn't they have a say, kind of like the Greater Idaho movement,
mm-hmm.
to leave? But unfortunately, all they can do is join Nevada.
I think they
Like,
should. I mean, yeah, sure, they could join Nevada. Northern Nevada could break off and join the Greater Idaho movement, or
yeah,
maybe even. I think Utah's not going to draw anyone in with our Mormon laws, but I'm just putting it blankly. You know, if you have ridiculous alcohol laws, we're not going to get anywhere near Lake Tahoe or Reno. Just not.
exactly.
But Idaho, I think, might stand a better chance. But I do think that we need to look at, allowing more states to form.
I think that too, because that's exactly why France fell. They were too large of a republic. That's why England fell. They were too large of a, they tried to have a republic in the form of a constitutional republic monarchy. They fell because they got too big. That is why.
Oh,
That's why Rome fell. That's why Greece fell. And if a republic, of which we are, it's supposed to be small states
mm-hmm.
that don't have a lot of power. That way, you have coalitions and things move slowly.
Mm-hmm.
Progress.
Well, here's a
Yeah.
question: could that be used to weaponize one party against the other? On the senatorial side, though,
It could.
it could easy, because California has the population to break Southern California into two states, giving the state of California 6 senators, and they would still have numerical control from the state capital north to stay Democrat, from the state capital to San Francisco to stay Democrat, and LA County to stay Democrat. So that could be a threat on that.
It could be, but that's why, like with the Greater Idaho movement, right? Eastern Oregon could break off and form their own state. Eastern Washington could break off and form their own state. There's those things, but there's that one law that doesn't allow it to happen.
We'd have to figure out thresholds too. I think you have to have a certain population. I know Wyoming will be absorbed into somewhere because 3 people shouldn't make a state, but I heard there was a birth though, 4 people. It was a cow. But anyways, yeah.
So another good question that I got is SB 54. It's to do with the signature gathering. Will you be seeking to gather signatures if you're not elected by the state delegates?
I'm currently in the process of doing the signatures. I like I said, I'm a self-funded campaign. I'm not seeking any big endorsements from anybody. I'm not trying to meet with them. I'm meeting with people like you. I want the people's endorsement. I'm doing my very best to gather signatures, but I'm a one-man team. I am looking for help. People can. When I first talked to you guys, I told you I didn't have a website. I launched my website today. We're still getting forms and everything, but I have a phone number, an email address that they can all reach out to me at scottforutah.com. So you can go there, leave me a voice message, and if you want a canvas from me, I will personally meet with you first. I will give you everything that you need to do, and I'm willing to meet with delegates in person, mayors, council members, and to get that 7,000. That's where I'm at. Like I said, I want to be a man of the people, for the people, and I want to stand with the people in Washington.
So Scott,
that's my slogan.
What's the threshold for the signatures to get on the ballot?
7,000, but I am searching for around 8 to 10. And I know that's a little steep, especially July 5th is when it's due. Because around what the elections office told me at the lieutenant governor's office is that around 500 to 1,000 signatures will be thrown away for that. They're actually not a registered Republican. They're not registered, or they are not of the Republican Party. The state of Utah dictates, because obviously it's the Republican primary, that you only have Republicans.
Right. Okay, so you need 7,000 signatures from Republicans in order to get on the ballot if you go that route.
Yes.
Well,
But I'm also seeking the convention as well.
And,
So
and
you can do-
what day is the convention, Scott?
They are still tentatively doing it. I think they either said it was September 5th or 6th. But the way the state of Utah did it, signatures are due July 5th. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the primaries are right around Labor Day. The election is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. They put it in a way that is really putting self-funded people like myself or people who are under the establishment at a greater disadvantage. And I think that is purposely done.
Right. I can understand that. I mean, the system doesn't want to make it easy for people.
Not even that. I think I think the Republican Party has already picked the person they want.
Yeah. Do you know who that might be?
I have my sneaking suspicions. However, I'm not going to say that because I did sign a pledge, and I won't talk about my fellow candidates like that. I will try to keep it as peaceful and cordial unless they come after me.
I wonder if this is a fast one. Will we have time for debates? Will we have time for things like that?
I hope so. I love to debate.
Yeah, I just wonder, will we have time for it? I mean,
well, technically, per federal law and state law, 90 days after he technically is retired, Congressman Stewart. So September 15th is when they have to hold it. So my guess is debates will happen sometime between September 15th and that time. I believe that is enough time. However, like I said, people like me who are self-funded, they're probably going to put the debates somewhere far south. And make it a little bit more difficult because from what I understand, St. George is what they're saying is St. George is the city to win because there's only one member of the candidacy in the Republican Party that is from down south that I know of. And I believe that's the Leeds mayor who just declared today. I don't remember his name, but he is also a fellow Navy corpsman, so he's a good guy.
All right. Yeah. So St. George, you're going to have to figure out how to get that traveling down real quick.
Actually, if I don't know if you have any people from St. George, but I'm actually going to be down there tomorrow through Thursday. I'm coming back because Thursday's my daughter's first birthday.
Where are you meeting at in St. George? Are you going to like the town hall, things like that, meeting up and answering questions?
I'm going to be going to the Veterans Association. That's my first stop.
The VA, okay.
Yes, and then I'm going to be out in front of businesses. I'm going to try to find a business. People can go follow me on Facebook at Scott for Utah, Twitter Scott for I think it's Scott Hatfield for Utah or Scott for Utah. Instagram it's Scott for Utah. I've tried to keep it pretty easy. But there's also a candidate named Scott Reber or Scott Reber. He's also using that term, Scott for Utah. But if to kind of keep things easy, scottforutah.com, and it'll be me. My profile picture is my picture is the one that you used in your advertisement.
Yeah, and
they won't get confused.
It's www.scottforutah.com. So it's spelled out. It's not the number for. And one day we'll get this website thing down to where we're not all stepping on each other's toes. But
yes,
for now we're Luddites, and it'll also be in the show notes. We'll just put a hot link right in there and just click on it, go right to it. We'll put a link in the Facebook area where you can click on it and go to it. Do you mind if we go through some comments real quick?
Let's do it.
All right. We only have comments from one person.
Okay.
From Chelsea. But she says, we have to stop with tax breaks and tax credits and grants. Quit jumping, Facebook. And grants and subsidies. We need to just not be taking those funds from our paychecks in the first place. Okay, well, that's a comment. I mean, that's what was that? The 16th Amendment that gave us that? Direct taxation. And I agree. I think taxes should be done on a state level. I think the Fed should beg for the state, and the Fed should never have contact with the average citizen. That's just my feelings. And I think states should rise or fall upon how they run, and the feds have to meet the standards of the states. But it's just my opinion. All those things are stealing from our paycheck and giving a portion back to us if we use it a certain way, or having to meet certain criteria to get those breaks or grants. Just stop taking taxes in the first place unless it's for national defense, and we need a better system set up for the people to be able to regulate that. It jumped again. They should be posting where every penny is spent and how every day, and held accountable for spending our money. No more money to other countries. Agreed.
Oh, agreed.
Yeah.
I think it's time for people. I think it's time for the countries that we have lent money to pay us back.
You want to hear a crazy argument that I've heard once upon a time, and it kind of does make sense. You know how we seem to frivolously send money to other countries to support something that'll never last there? Like, say, the money sent to Pakistan for transgender affirmative studies in secondary, schools in the, you know that?
Yeah.
Someone once explained to me that may be to keep US dollars flowing to those countries, to keep them on the US dollar being the standard money that they base their currency off of, to keep the dollar flowing through the world.
It's like validation.
Because if we fill their coffers with dollars, they may not be as quick to get out of the dollar. Because if the world gets out of the dollar, we're going to have a hiccup in our status of living, to say the least.
Yes, we will.
Hey, Scott, speaking of money, I got to ask. Do you know how to do Bitcoin transactions?
I do not.
No?
I do not.
Okay. Just wondering.
Yeah.
It's not something that I've dabbled in. I've the last few years since it's been a thing, I've been really focusing on education and starting my family, and kind of building a name for myself in politics, and trying to get involved with the community. That's been more of my thing versus, stocks and trading and Bitcoin and all of that stuff. I'm a really big family man, so that's where I like to be.
How many kids do you have?
I have my 1-year-old daughter. She's my first, and I love her.
1-year-old daughter. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And she's going to be fun for 11 more years.
Oh, she loves going out into the Uintas with me. My wife and I would go out there almost every weekend, and she loves hiking with us. We throw her in our backpack and we go fishing, and we go hang out with her, and she just absolutely loves it. It's great. She's basically my reincarnation, if you believe into that thing.
That's fantastic. All right, one last comment.
Okay.
And then we're going to cut you loose.
All right.
Utah spent a $500,000 grant to a no-profit to give our free masks to Hispanics. How about free chocolate for women?
That's a comment, not a question.
Yeah. Well, the end is a question. How about free chocolate for women? Are you pro free chocolate to women?
Why not?
Yeah, why not? I do think that we have gone absurd governmentally with trying to spend money as far and as wide as we can. No one can look at that realistically on any side and say that we're being sound, that our government is being sound stewards with
Yes.
with the money that they tax from us.
Exactly. And that's one thing that I will work tirelessly to do, is to kind of make sure no new taxes are added to the people. We're already overtaxed. It's going to be hard not to, sign for taxes, but it's one thing that I want to do is different than most, if not all, congressmen, is ask the people. I kind of want to. I kind of did this in college with my group. It was kind of our group project that we did, and we came up with this great idea of an app that we could have our constituents download, and you could just put in your address. You see who your congressman or your local people are, and you can see what the issues they are actually voting on, and then you could have live polls like, should I vote for this? This is what it is in a gist. This is what it's going to do to you. This is why it's good. This is why it's bad. And put it out a couple hours before the vote and see how the constituents would want that. It's going to be something hard to do, obviously. A lot of people are going to be like, well, we're delegated that power. But I think any sane congressman would be like, if I'm representing, my constituency, shouldn't I be asking them what they want?
Yeah.
That's why we're elected. We're delegated, we're endowed, and we're earning that.
I don't know why I'm sitting next to a state delegate. I don't know why the state delegates aren't reached out to by our congressmen and senators ever.
I actually have been looking for a way to reach out to state delegates. I have not been able to find anything. It's probably so far deep down that I haven't been able to find it, because I want to reach out. I've been emailing mayors, I've been emailing council members, but I want to meet with delegates. I want to go to their house. I want to meet with them.
You don't even have to meet with them. You can just call them up and say, "Hey, what's the feeling in your neighborhood?"
You can reach out to the chair of your location. Where do you live, Scott? What area?
So I actually live in Harriman. I'm about 10 miles outside of the district. I have lived within the district before, and I'm currently, my wife and I are looking to move back into the district, whether that's down to St. George or Tooele or the Davis County area.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, when I moved to Utah, I lived in Farmington all the way up until I sold my house to come here, so my wife and I could be closer to our universities.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think there needs to be a way. I would have one of my staff members, I would be like, your job is to call delegates all day, every day.
See, I'm a two-person team right now. I'm a two-person team. I have my social media and web developer. He's handling all of that, and I'm handling the meeting with people. So if you, I encourage the delegates to reach out to me, and I will reach back out to them, and I will do my best to figure out where to find that information, because it's something that I want to do, because I like I said, I want the people's vote.
I would get a hold of our Republican chair and ask for the different county chairs. And the county chairs, I think, would probably be your best inroad to the different delegates, because they kind of run the delegates on the ground level.
There is a database. You have to ask for it.
Yeah.
Probably ask for it nicely.
Yeah, I would ask for it nicely. After this is over, we can try to help link you up with our county chair, but I would go through the proper channels, get a hold of the office of the Republican state chair, and then try to, get a hold of that way. But it's your county chairs that run the delegates. They're the ones that gather them, that put together the events. And,
Sounds good.
But yeah, that's all the questions we have here.
Yeah.
Close it out on a statement, and then we'll let you go.
So as I've said multiple times, is that I want the people's endorsement. That's most important to me. The people are important to me. I want to represent the people because I am from the people. Like I said, I grew up in a single mother home, rural California. I know this district is very rural, and I grew up under the poverty line. I know what it's like to struggle, make ends meet, put food on the table, um, try to figure out how to get to work, clothe kids. I've seen it happen firsthand. Um, and I just I want to be the people's congressman. That's why I got into this. I really want to represent people. I want to, if I'm elected, I'll um, make it out to these communities, especially places like Dugway and Wendover and Tooele, and not just focus on, you know, Salt Lake or where the big population is, because that's where the most voters are. I want to make sure that I go to Washington and represent you guys correctly, represent our values correctly that we have here in Utah, and not just the majority of the LDS faith. I want everybody. I want to represent not only Republicans, but I want to represent Democrats, independents, and I encourage, if there are any Democrats out there, independents that do not like their party, to go to my website, reach out to me. There may be things we disagree upon, but I want to be for everybody, and that's where that is. And like I said, I'll wrap it up with this: I am a man of the people, for the people, standing with the people.
All right, everyone. That's Scott Hatfield. He's running for Congressional District 2 of Utah. So, yeah, go check out his website. It's got a kind of bullet points there. It's scottforutah.com, and that's spelled out SCOTTFORUTAH.com. And we look forward to seeing you in the future, Scott.
Thank you. And if you guys ever want to invite me back, please do.
You bet.
You bet, buddy.
All right. You have a good night.
You too. Night.
Bye.